Hey guys, it's Lindsay with Rockwell Real Estate here again. Today we will be talking about some common real estate fraud scams. If you like what you see and you find value in it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, but then also hit that little bell button just above us and make sure to subscribe for more notifications and more videos to come. So today I'm here with my good friend Brendy Jennings with First American Title.
Hi guys.
And we will be covering again some common real estate scams in the industry. For the most part, these are just a couple things that we have seen over our many years working in the industry. And the first one I'm going to talk about is we see a ton of rental scams. That's the big one that I come across a lot. What that typically looks like is, you'll see all these Craigslist ads and you're like, I'm a renter. These homes look too good to be true. These look amazing. It's $1,000 for a 3-bedroom home. Let me contact this person. And a lot of times what you'll do is, as a renter, prospective renter, you'll reach out, send an email, and then sure enough, they'll come right back to you really, really quickly, responding to you and asking for money just right off the bat. Those are usual, just big time red flags. Some other things that you can really use to alert you and know that those are huge scams that are going on. It's not an actual rental. Is you'll see in the pictures on Craigslist, you'll actually see watermarks for the MLS. And what that is people, these basically huge scam companies are getting together. They're cycling through Zillow and Realtor.com, and some may even have MLS access. And they'll pull those photos off of the MLS or off of Zillow and Realtor, and they'll post them as their own, as if they were doing a rental. So they have no contact with this property whatsoever. And what you can do is, if you happen to see these rentals come up, you're more than welcome. If you research it a little bit, sometimes they'll even rip off other ads from actual real estate agents, and you can call the real estate company and say, hey, what's going on with this rental? And 9 times out of 10, we get these phone calls all the time. People are always like, hey, I was inquiring about this rental. We don't do rentals. Let me know where you're seeing this. We'll look at it, and sure enough, someone will have stolen the pictures and posted it as a rental. So the biggest thing there is, if you see a rental that you feel like is too good to be true, it's absolutely too good to be true. But then a lot of times, anytime someone is asking for money up front, if they're texting you, calling you, sending you an email right away asking for a deposit, nope, don't do it.
It's an emergency. It's a big sense of urgency.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm. With anything, rentals, and then it goes in, there's other scams as well. If you haven't seen the property or physically been there, or talk to someone that that is a licensed agent, it's probably not a good scenario. It's probably not real. So it's really good to be wise to those things. And then the next one that I see probably a little bit more infrequently is home inspections. And so sometimes we've seen, you can have someone come out to your home that you're actually in escrow on, and it's either, someone that is employed by the company or isn't. And they will do basically a half-assed inspection. They're not licensed. They will give you basically a verbal rundown of the home inspection and then ask for money. Mm-hmm. And our home inspectors never do that. Right. You will absolutely get an email confirming who's coming to meet you there, who, is going to actually be performing the inspection, what company it is, dates, times. But then when you are finished with that inspection, 9 times out of 10, and this is another thing we'll touch on in a little bit, is similar to that, like title, you'll always get an email that's a secured portal email. It's the same thing with inspectors. They will send you the inspection report, and only once you get that via email and then you pay them, that's when you get access to the report. And that's how you know that it's a legitimate company. There's nothing under the table happening. There's no scam going on there. And then, quite honestly, the biggest one that we see, it's huge in the industry, is wire fraud. And Brandy here has a lot to tell you about wire fraud in title.
There is a lot when it comes to wire fraud, and you don't realize this because you think, oh, wire fraud, that's not going to happen to me, right? You don't think things are going to happen to you.
Well, and most people honestly are like, what is wire fraud?
Right.
Who even does wires, you know? But it's super common in this industry. We still take wires.
Absolutely. Wires are actually very secure. It's just a matter of knowing where you're sending it. And people don't realize that 1 in 3 transactions of real estate transactions are actually targeted for fraud. So they're looking for this. They're waiting to find out that you have a transaction. They're going to try to get your money. So it's really important for you to be knowledgeable, communicate with your team, your real estate agent, your lender, your escrow officer. We're very lucky at First American Title because we're the only title company that has our own bank. So our wire instructions don't change. But the majority of the time, these hackers and these fraudsters are trying to pretend that they are someone from your team. They're going to make a fake email.
Yep.
I've actually seen one for First American before, but because people are knowledgeable, they knew. But they changed the domain from firstam.com to arn.com. So they've gotten really good.
Yeah.
You used to be able to see typos and all. They're so good now. So it's important. You are looking to see who the email came from. You can hover over it, see where it's actually going, make sure it's coming from your actual escrow officer. But you also have the ability with most, real estate companies, lending companies, and title companies where you can use the securities that they pay for. So if they have some kind of transactions portal, use it. That's a way of using their securities to prevent anyone knowing about your transaction. So I encourage people to do that all the time. You use that transactions portal.
Yeah, and a lot of times you will notice, like if you have open escrow and you're receiving correspondence from your real estate agent, your escrow officer, maybe even some people on their team, and then a lot of times our team, we have a girl that does all of our transaction coordination. So you're going to be receiving all of these emails from different people at different times. However, one of the key components is all of those people will always be on that email thread. Right. It's really important to keep all of those people in the same dialogue. So if you get an email that's just to you, that's a huge red flag.
Absolutely. And make sure that when you get an email that seems a little off, that you call the person from the number that you actually know for that person to confirm that it was them that sent it. So you're going to want to look for, changes in email. Make sure that you are using any kind of transactions portal and using those extra securities. If you decide not to use a portal like that, know that your title company is most likely going to send you emails through secure. So it should say secure in the subject line. So we always let you know to just communicate. Cyber fraud awareness is everywhere in all of our emails. But just know if there's a last minute change, that's when you really need to pay attention and make the phone calls. So I know, for instance, in California, there was a transaction where the clients were at a closing. They knew they had to come in with $330,000. So from the closing where they got the wire instructions, they drove to the bank. And luckily they were in an area where it took a while to get to the bank. They go to the bank. On the way there, they received a text message from their escrow officer saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I gave you the wrong wire instructions. Here are the correct wire instructions. They went to the bank, they gave them the texted wire instructions. Luckily, they were still at the bank with the bank manager when they called the escrow officer to let them know that they had sent the funds and thank you for the text message because they got it and they sent it to the right place. And the escrow officer said, wait a minute, no, I did not send you a text message. I did not change our wire instructions. That's why I'm like, First American doesn't change our wire instructions, thank goodness, ever. But they thought they had changed them. And the bank manager right away tried to recall that wire. 20,000 of that 330,000 was already gone, just like that, and they couldn't get it back. So most of the time, you probably can't get it back. The bank's going to try, the feds are going to try, and every so often people are lucky enough to get their money back. But for the most part, if the buyer has sent the funds and they didn't call and verify those wire instructions with their escrow officer before they did it, that money is lost forever. It's awful.
Terrible.
It's terrible, and we hate seeing stories like that or hearing stories like that.
But
it happens.
It's a good example of knowing and feeling super secure with the title company that you go with, and also the banks that you're going with and who your lender is, and just knowing that they're not going to send you some crazy text message from a number that you don't recognize. That's a huge red flag.
Exactly. And the same thing happens through the email. They'll pretend to be your escrow officer or your realtor, saying, send the earnest money here, send the closing funds here, wire instructions changed since your closing statement. That sense of urgency that they try to put in, just, okay, maybe it's true, call your team. Make sure you call the numbers that you have already and figure out if it is correct or not. So.
And they're getting very, very tricky these days. They're getting better and better. Often we've seen where they will go through your entire roster on your website of all your agents, and then they'll duplicate those emails and send out emails to other people all the time. They're getting really smart at how they're doing it.
So
and a lot of places are going to very secured server portals. And it's because they have bots that can go out and attack basic large servers, basically like Yahoo and Google and all these other large servers. And they'll scan for different keywords. And when they see things, they'll see things like the word escrow. And in this instance, they did it within an hour's time, and they saw the keyword escrow.
Or closing statement, or sale. They're putting all those keywords out there to try to find out.
And aren't they attacking earnest money now too?
Yeah, actually, it's really surprising, but I actually heard this story here in Bend, Oregon, where somebody had written an offer on a Saturday, and then on Sunday received an email saying, hey, you actually need to wire in your funds first thing on Monday. Here's your wire instructions. And luckily that buyer happened to be a First American employee and knew better, but she was targeted on the weekend on a transaction that just happened. And yeah, I thought it was just closing funds, earnest money as well.
Wow.
Awful.
Yeah.
And another thing that they're targeting is foreclosure relief.
Yeah, that's actually becoming more and more common. A lot of that is because on Zillow, they have pre-foreclosure reports. And a lot of that information, once I feel like I'm giving like a playbook on how to do it, but basically you want to be really careful with that, because they can take your address and public record. They'll find the owners. They can find phone numbers really easy. Just doing a simple person search on the internet, and they can either call or text you. Sometimes, one way, shape, or form, they can find your emails as well. And unfortunately, that one becomes really predatory. They'll reach out to you claiming they're the bank, or claiming that they're someone else looking to purchase your home to get it out of foreclosure. And that's far from the truth. But again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, is anytime that you feel that sense of urgency, that's a big red flag too. And, yes, in real estate, time is of the essence.
Sure.
We absolutely practice that because we're dealing with contracts and timelines and deadlines. However, it's never too soon to pick up the phone and do just like a courtesy call and, do a little bit of your own due diligence on that. It's worth your money, right? At the end, that's you're losing out on your own money.
So they will try to make you feel like there's this last minute urgency or rush, and maybe there really is, but still take that extra minute just to call people at the numbers you already have to avoid being taken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the last one that we're going to touch on today is a title and deed scam. Sometimes you see a lot of commercials about this, and I even had questions about this because I see it all the time. There's all these accusations that people go out there, and it's not to say that it doesn't happen. It absolutely happens, but people can go out there and basically transfer the deed into their name without you having any knowledge of it. Basically, someone is just doing full property theft. And you don't know about it until it's too late. Right. So what does that look like?
Well, basically, that's really only going to happen if your identity has been stolen. Because in order for you to transfer ownership of a property, that deed has to be notarized. And when you get your deed notarized, you have to provide identification and go through all those steps. So most likely, if that's happening, you are having your identity stolen from you. So it's been compromised at least. So at that point, it's very important for you to check all of your accounts You know, if you have a lot of logins online, maybe changing your logins, and monitor everything. Go look at all of your accounts. Is there any suspicious activity on there? But I feel bad for those people that have had properties taken from them in this way, because their identity obviously has been stolen. ID has been created with a different picture and their name. So there's so much more that they're going to have to jump through. But I think it's important for people to really pay attention. Look at your accounts often. Don't keep the same username and password for every one of your accounts. You know, change those. Maybe put some kind of freeze on your credit file until you can get down to the roots of it and figure out what happened. This happens more, I think, when your property is free and clear and there's no loan on it that needs to be paid off, because then there's more that's going to happen, right? You're going to need an authorization to order payoffs and all that. So I think people that have, you know, own their properties free and clear are probably more subject to this type of identity fraud where they're trying to take the property.
That's so terrible. Honestly, it's so predatory. A lot of times, you know, elderly people fall victim of that.
Absolutely.
That's a huge market, unfortunately.
Yeah, they should definitely make sure that your tax bills for your property are being sent to the right address. If you're not getting your tax bill, something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Or at least a copy of it if your lender pays for it.
Yeah, you don't just get to not pay because you didn't get a bill in the mail.
Exactly. So, you know, staying on top of what bills you should be receiving. If you notice there's been any changes, or if you haven't received one, just make sure that your records are accurate. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. But yeah, unfortunately, it happens all the time. Maybe not all the time, but identity theft is happening all the time.
Yeah. You know, and so I guess in closing, some of the best ways to really prevent all of these methods of fraud and scams is just to be super diligent. You know, make sure to stay in clear lines of communication with all the people on your transaction. Have a licensed realtor by your side. You know, people that can spot these things ahead of time and just really help guide you along. You know, also being aware, like we were talking about earlier, that sense of urgency. If you have someone pressuring you to send money quickly, that's usually a big red flag.
I mean, just pay attention to what you have going on in your life.
Yeah.
Know where what bills you have and what should be coming in the mail or by email. And don't do anything where you feel a little questionable.
Yeah.
Just double check. It just takes a minute.
There's no harm checking.
Thousands of dollars are at risk. So just talk to your team, communicate. If you get a weird feeling, just double check.
Yeah, totally. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Today we were talking about real estate scams and fraud, and now ways to prevent them. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell button for future notifications. But also make sure to check out the notes below. We're going to have a lot of different information available for you to prevent wire fraud and just information on all these scams. So definitely click the link below.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.